And after all the buildup and all the stories, I think the biggest takeaway from today's hearing was that Pete Hegseth is probably going to be our next Secretary of Defense. Polymarket Today, the same site that correctly called the 2024 election after the hearings today, has got Pete Hegseth's chances of being confirmed at 88%. That's the highest it's been. Again, Pete Hegseth is not applying for Husband of the Year. He's not applying for the seminary. He's not applying to run AA meetings. He's made mistakes. He's had some issues in his personal life, yes. But when Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin called out many of the senators in the room for doing many of the things Hegseth has been anonymously accused of doing, wouldn't you know it, that room got really quiet.
How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down?
Ooh, nobody answered that one directly. I think we had this expectation, I know I did, that Democrats, with 6 weeks to prepare for this, were really going to try to get Pete Hegseth today. But then I thought about the Democrats that were in the room today: Elizabeth Warren, Richard Blumenthal, Mazie Hirono, Tim Kaine. Remember him? Ran with Hillary Clinton, right? Just like Tim Walz, already a trivia question. And I realized how sad the Democrat Party is. They really embarrassed themselves today. Elizabeth Warren has lied for her entire life about being Native American. She's not. She's 1/64th Cherokee at best, meaning she's more closely related to the Jeep Grand Cherokee than the tribe. But according to her hometown paper, the Boston Globe, Lizzie apparently referred to herself as a minority in the directory for the Association of American Law Schools way back in 1986. And then she applied to work at Harvard Law School, where she checked the box next to Native American, a job that would eventually pay her $430,000 a year based on a lie. The truth is, Elizabeth Warren built an entire career based on that lie. But today, she sat there, lips pursed, and had the temerity to question Pete Hegseth's character. You want to know who Elizabeth Warren really is? In 1984, 40 years ago, that's how long this grift's been going on. In 1984, Elizabeth Warren wrote a recipe for a cookbook called Pow Wow Chow, a collection of recipes from families of the 5 civilized tribes, where Elizabeth Warren volunteered her recipe for Mexican oatmeal soup. And right next to her name, she wrote Cherokee. Elizabeth Warren, Cherokee. And little Lizzie made it all the way to the Senate after that, based on that lie. And with 6 weeks to prepare, this was Pow Wow Chow's best question for Pete Hegseth today. Take a look.
The question I have for you on this is, will you put your money where your mouth is and agree that when you leave this job, you will not work for the defense industry for 10 years?
It is really sad when you think about the decay of that party. And just out of curiosity, did anyone think to maybe let the fake Indian know that our current defense secretary, Lloyd Austin, was literally on the board at Raytheon when he was nominated to be Secretary of Defense 4 years ago? Do these people hear themselves speak? Did anyone on little Lizzie's staff think that, hey, when Lloyd Austin retired from the military, he did exactly what she's about to ask Pete Hegseth about? After that, we heard from Richard Blumenthal. That's my senator in the state of Connecticut. I'm very proud. Think about this for a moment. Richard Blumenthal has spent his entire adult life lying about serving in Vietnam. But according to his newspaper, the New York Times, Blumenthal never served in Vietnam. And after at least 5 military deferments, he eventually served stateside in the Marine Reserves, working on, this is a quote, projects like campground repairs. Campground repairs. But somehow, according to Democrats, today Richard Blumenthal was the best person to pass judgment on Pete Hegseth's record. Take a look.
By 2010, revenue at the Veterans for Freedom had dropped to about $265,000. In the next year, it had dropped further to $22,000. You don't dispute these numbers, do you?
Polymarket again has Pete today at 88%. That number will probably go up between now and Monday when the Senate votes on his confirmation. I also thought the timing of this whole thing was a little fascinating. Just hours before Hegseth's hearing today, Joe Biden, late yesterday, delivered his final foreign policy speech as president. And it was perhaps the single greatest expression of gaslighting in a speech that we've ever seen. According to Joe Biden, America has never been more powerful.
During my presidency, I've increased America's power at every dimension. We've increased our diplomatic power, creating more allies than the United States has ever had in the history of our nation.
Our adversaries and competitors are weaker. That's what Joe Biden said. Really, Joe? From the New York Times yesterday, in 2024, China's trade surplus reached a record of nearly $1 trillion. That's the most ever, Joe, meaning that China, our number one adversary and competitor, is not weaker. They are stronger, to the tune of $1 trillion profit. The president also seems oddly proud of the war in Ukraine. Not only that, but the fact that he visited Ukraine once.
Our adversaries are weaker than were when we came into this job 4 years ago. Just consider Russia. When Putin invaded Ukraine, he thought he'd conquer Kyiv in a matter of days. But the truth is, since that war began, I'm the only one that stood in the center of Kyiv, not him. Putin never has. Think about it.
Joe, Ukraine is losing this war. Our adversaries are weaker today than they were 4 years ago. Just consider Russia. That's what Joe said. Does it feel like that to you? Is Iran weaker? Is North Korea weaker? Is Russia really weaker? 4 years ago, we didn't have wars in Gaza and Ukraine, a war that Joe Biden claims Russia is losing.
We helped Ukrainians stop Putin. And now, nearly three years later, Putin has failed to achieve any of his strategic objectives. He has failed thus far to subjugate Ukraine, failed to break the unity of NATO, and failed to make large territorial gains. There's more to do. We can't walk away.
So here are the facts, and it brings me no joy to report this, but right now Russia controls eastern Ukraine. Whether you like it or not, that's the reality on the ground, Joe Biden. Peace in Ukraine will likely mean that the 4 regions currently controlled by Russia remain in Russia's hands. Joe, you lost, NATO lost. Putin is likely going to get away on this. He will get what he wants. But the president went on, this time talking about Iran and how they're apparently weaker too.
And now, look at Iran. Did you ever think we'd be where we are with Iran at this moment? After those despicable attacks by Hamas on October the 7th, Iran directly attacked Israel twice.
So what's interesting is presidents have speechwriters. I get that. But Joe Biden is so far gone between the ears. Again, the proverbial cheese has slipped so far off the cracker that I don't even think he reads his speeches before he delivers them. He said, "Did you ever think we'd be where we are with Iran at this moment?" That is a quote from Joe Biden. Mr. President, Iran right now is closer than they've ever been before to having a nuclear weapon. And what do you think they're going to do when they get a nuclear weapon? If they are able to build one, they will likely use it. After that, the president shifted to the fentanyl crisis here in the U.S., where 300 Americans are still dying of overdose deaths every single day. Take a look.
We found ways to work with each other, to address climate change, to reduce the flow of fentanyl in the United States, which, by the way, overdose deaths are coming down across our nation. And in my administration, we've seized more fentanyl at our border in 2 years than the previous 5 years combined.
I don't want to be the one to tell Joe this, but the only reason that his White House is seizing more fentanyl than any other presidency in history is because more fentanyl is crossing the border than ever before. Joe Biden created this crisis when he opened up the border. He owns this problem. After that, Joe talked about the famous railroad project, the one that's going on. It's going to help millions of Americans get to work every day if those Americans live in Africa. Not America, but Africa. Take a look.
I was recently in Angola to see a major project being built with the help of American public funding, which brought in even more private investment. We're building the first ever transcontinental railroad across Africa that will significantly improve the economies of the region.
So that project's in Africa, in Angola, $1 billion for Africa. Joe Biden, the American last president, that'll be his legacy. Finally, Joe Biden thought it was a good idea to talk about the Palestinians, the same people who elected Hamas and put Hamas in charge. Take a listen.
The deal we have structured would free the hostages, halt the fighting, provide security to Israel, and allow us to significantly surge humanitarian assistance to the Palestinians who've suffered terribly in this war that Hamas started. They've been through hell. So many innocent people have been killed. So many communities have been destroyed. The Palestinian people deserve peace.
No, Joe. The Israelis deserve peace. The Palestinians put Hamas in power. And October the 7th, Hamas attacked Israel and killed over 1,200 people, Joe. The Israelis deserve peace. But just like everything else in his warped brain, Joe Biden's view on every topic is completely opposite what it should be. Joe is talking about the Palestinians and not the Israelis. In closing, and this was laughable, he thanked his foreign policy team, called them the best ever. People like Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, who Pete Hegseth is trying to replace.
I put together one of the most competent foreign policy teams, I would argue, in American history, sitting in this room and before my eyes. Throughout my career, the world has undergone tremendous change. But certain things have always held true. At our best, America leads not only by the example of our power, but the power of our example.
I suppose on some level he has to say that. He can't tell the truth, but Antony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, and Lloyd Austin are going to go down in history as probably the worst foreign policy team that we've ever seen in the White House. It's not even close, which brings me all the way back to Pete Hegseth. In 2020, we were all told that Lloyd Austin had the perfect resume for the job. And frankly, at this point, I would take anyone over Lloyd Austin, because when push came to shove, and as a nation, we really needed all of that experience and expertise that we all heard so much about from Lloyd Austin. Instead of getting peace, instead of that, Lloyd and Joe set the world on fire. Ukraine, Gaza, Iran, China, the Afghan withdrawal, and it's going to be up to Donald Trump and whoever gets that job, Pete Hegseth or somebody else, to clean it all up.